3 days ago, on my 32nd birthday, I woke up to the acrid smell of burnt plastic, and the sight of my credit card melted into a twisted lump in the kitchen trash. By the time I checked my phone, my savings account was $25,000 lighter, completely drained, not pending, not transferred, just gone. My name is Ava Hart. I'm 32 years old, and that discovery should have been the low point of my day, but that was only the first act. The final blow came not from a thief, but from a man who'd waited 10 years to speak. By that night, in front of over 100 stunned guests, my father finally broke 10 years of silence and revealed the truth that would turn the entire room upside down. The woman who robbed me sat at the family table, flaunting jewelry bought with my stolen money, laughing about teaching me a lesson in weakness, unaware that evidence was already stacking against her. She thought humiliation would destroy me, but she hadn't realized that patience is power disguised as silence. She didn't see that sometimes the quietest person in the room is already holding every card. That morning began like any other birthday, until the acrid smell led me to the trash can and the melted plastic that still reeked of betrayal. My hands shook as I checked my accounts. $25,000 gone. Not pending, not transferred, just erased. 3 years of savings for a down payment wiped out overnight, threatening not only my future, but my reputation as chief accountant at my father's company. The home security footage from the night had been deleted, covered up by someone who knew the access code. One of only 3 people, me, my father, and my stepmother Caroline, who had insisted she needed it for emergencies. The past week's odd moments came rushing back into place. Caroline probing about my savings goals. Sophie, my half-sister, suddenly obsessed with my banking apps under the excuse of learning financial planning. Their sly glances at dinner when I mentioned my birthday reservation at the Aurelia. My laptop's transaction history, before it was wiped, showed the truth. He watched them call me weak, watched them erase me year by year, and said nothing. I had begun to wonder if silence was his only form of love. Midnight withdrawals at the daily limit, wire transfers to strangers, designer purchases at Nordstrom, Saks, and Tiffany's, all while I slept under the same roof, blind to the betrayal brewing around me. The kitchen walls seemed to close in, the betrayal not careless but carefully timed, crafted to land like a blow on my birthday morning. Just hours before the grand party Caroline insisted on hosting that night, my phone buzzed, a message from Sophie. "Morning, sis. Paris is amazing. Thanks for..." I didn't need the rest. Another buzz, Caroline calling, her syrupy voice already rehearsed with false concern. Then another photo from Sophie, standing at the Eiffel Tower in designer sunglasses, a Chanel bag draped over her arm, champagne glass raised high. "Thanks for making this trip possible. Some of us actually know how to live instead of hoarding money like a scared little mouse." The next photo sealed it. Shopping bags from Louis Vuitton, Hermès, Dior, each one bought with the money I had worked years to save. "Don't worry," the caption mocked. "I'll bring you back a keychain." "That's more your speed," rage rose in my chest like fire, and just then, my phone began to ring. "Caroline, Ava, darling." Her voice oozed through the phone like syrup masking poison. "Just a reminder, tonight, 8 o'clock sharp at the Aurelia. Everyone will be there. Your father's partners, the extended family, even the Hartmans from the country club I tried to cut in, but she kept going. Do wear something appropriate. I know you love those modest little outfits, but this is a real celebration. Maybe buy something nice. Oh, wait." She paused long enough for me to hear her smile. "You're so good at making do with less." I opened my mouth. "Caroline, someone stole." But she didn't let me finish. Life teaches lessons when we need them most, sweetheart. Some people are just too weak to protect what's theirs. They make themselves victims by being passive little doormats. But tonight isn't about your problems. It's about family. See you at 8. Then she hung up, leaving the words ringing like a slap. Almost instantly, my phone buzzed again. A text from Sophie. Mom says you're upset. Don't be such a baby, Ava. It's your birthday. Though I guess at 32, still single, still in that shoebox apartment, still letting people walk all over you. It's more of a pity party. I set the phone down carefully, forcing my hand not to hurl it against the wall. They weren't even hiding it anymore. They wanted me broken before I walked into that ballroom, humiliated, stripped bare in front of the people who mattered most. But sometimes, the best revenge is showing up with a smile. I opened my laptop, pulling together everything: screenshots, transaction records, even the logs proving my security footage had been deleted. Then, I sent the only message that mattered. James, it's Ava Hart. That situation we discussed. It's happening tonight. His reply came back instantly. Understood. Everything is ready. See you at 8. I had 5 hours to prepare. They believed they were teaching me a lesson in weakness. They had no idea the lesson waiting for them. As I built my case, memories surfaced like ghosts. 10 years of being the family's quiet sacrifice began the day Caroline married my father and paraded Sophie as the daughter who inherited the Hart strength. Every family gathering played the same script. Sophie demanded a new car at 16, a gap year in Europe, startup capital for yet another failed venture. Dad hesitated. Caroline turned to me. Ava understands family sacrifice, don't you, sweetheart? And I caved every time. When Sophie totaled her third car, I co-signed the loan for the fourth. When Caroline needed $10,000 for a charity gala that never happened, I wrote the check. When my birthdays were forgotten 3 years straight while Sophie's were lavish spectacles, I smiled and pretended it didn't matter. And at every dinner, Caroline delivered the same refrain. Sophie knows what she wants and takes it. That's real strength. Poor Ava, always waiting for permission to live. They saw silence as surrender, kindness as currency to be spent on their whims. While Sophie tantrumed her way into luxury, I built my career in silence. While Caroline burned through Dad's money on status, I stacked every penny I saved. While they staged their little power plays, I kept my eyes open, documenting, waiting. The irony was sharp enough to savor. They were so busy calling me weak they didn't notice Dad pulling me aside for private conversations about the company's future. They were too consumed with taking to see what I was building. And yet, one truth gnawed at me. Why had Dad stayed silent all these years? He'd watched them mock me, use me, dismiss me, never lifting a word in my defense. Until 6 months ago. That's when everything began to shift. 6 months ago, I was promoted to chief accountant of Hartwell Industries. Caroline's reaction was venom disguised as etiquette. Robert, she doesn't have the backbone for leadership, she announced at the dinner meant to celebrate me. Sophie should be groomed for executive roles. She has the killer instinct Ava lacks. Sophie had laughed outright. Seriously, Dad? Ava can barely say no to telemarketers. How's she supposed to handle corporate negotiations? Dad's silence at that table carried more weight than their insults. He didn't argue. He didn't defend me. But something in his eyes told me their contempt was finally working against them, and that silence had become a strategy. Then came the exclusions. Meetings moved to times I was traveling, investment calls scheduled when my plane landed, and every decision that used to pass through my desk sailed by without a whisper. Sophie began treating the company card like her personal credit line, routing receipts straight to Caroline for rubber stamp approval instead of following the protocol I enforced as chief accountant. When I flagged a $5,000 spa charge, Caroline waved it off. "Don't be so rigid, Ava. Family businesses run on trust, not bureaucracy, as if trust gave anyone the right to steal." The final straw arrived disguised as concern. At last month's board meeting, Caroline presented a polished slide deck proposing a restructure to reduce Ava's stress, complete with graphs and pitying headlines recommending Sophie as co-CFO despite zero financial experience. While everyone applauded the theatrics, I noticed something else. Dad had started slipping away every Thursday to meet privately with our lawyer, Marcus Lee, never including Caroline or Sophie. Marcus's car sat in the executive garage like clockwork, a quiet metronome for whatever plan was unfolding. When I asked Dad about those meetings, he gave me the same steady line he always does. "Patience, Ava. Sometimes the best strategy is letting people reveal their true nature." I filed his words away like another piece of evidence. Staring at my drained account that morning, his cryptic calm finally began to make sense. I readied the documentation I'd been quietly compiling for months. I hit subscribe and rang the bell so you'd see exactly how patient strategy turns into decisive action. You're about to watch how the quiet, diligent work behind the scenes flips the script in a room full of witnesses. Standing outside the Aurelia at 7:45 p.m., I could already calculate the cost of their greed. 3 years of savings erased in minutes, and feel the weight of what silence could protect or destroy. If I stayed silent that night, I'd forever be the weak daughter who let her family rob her blind. If I spoke up, I risked everything Dad had built with his partners. Our competitors were there too, circling like sharks, waiting for blood in the water. I was placed at a secondary family table while Sophie sat at my father's right hand as if she already owned the place. The card beside mine read, "Marcus Lee, Escrow." He leaned in and whispered, "Your father is proud of your restraint. But remember, restraint and surrender aren't the same thing." The Aurelia shimmered like a stage set for Caroline's grand production. Soft jazz floated under golden light that made everyone look rich and confident, while the wide spacing between tables offered plenty of room for dramatic entrances. The moment I stepped inside, Sophie pounced, her smile sharp as the diamond earrings dangling from her ears, earrings I recognized from the Tiffany's charge on my stolen account. "Welcome to your party, sister. Hope you can afford the memories." She kissed the air near my cheeks, whispering, "Love the dress." Target, very you. Caroline appeared in a $3,000 gown I'd seen her buy with the company card, gliding between conversations like silk-wrapped steel. "Ava, darling, everyone's been asking for the birthday girl. I've been telling them how you're learning so much in your little accounting role." "Chief accountant," I corrected softly. Her smile sharpened. "Yes, well, titles are just words, aren't they?" Sophie's been sharing her European adventure with everyone, such initiative, studying international business trends. She touched my arm, her concern fake as glass. "You really should travel more, dear. Though, of course, that requires resources." The room was theater, and I was the only actor without a script. Board members clustered near the bar, wives gossiping at the windows, my Uncle Richard suddenly fascinated by wall art to avoid meeting my eyes. At the main table, my father sat silent and still, his gaze tracking every move like a CEO surveying his empire. Caroline's voice rang out to investors. "Robert's been so generous with this party. Of course, some of us contribute more than others. Sophie just closed a major deal in Paris, didn't you, sweetheart?" Sophie lifted her champagne. "Let's just say the Hartwell name opens doors, when you know how to use it." I sat, noticing Marcus's briefcase angled within easy reach, the leather portfolio inside guarded like treasure. Then my father rose. His slow, deliberate movement silenced the room. All eyes lifted, expecting the birthday toast. But the look in his eyes promised something else. He raised his glass, but before he spoke, Sophie snatched the microphone. "Sorry, Daddy, I just have to share." Her voice echoed as she projected Paris photos onto the ballroom screen. Caroline joined, tag-teaming. Strong women seize opportunities, unlike some people who just hoard every penny. The crowd shifted, uneasy. Some leaned forward for the drama, others looked away. Across the room, Harrison Walsh's expression hardened to stone. My father's quiet command cut the air. "That's enough!" Caroline laughed too loudly. Sophie sneered. "Some lessons cost more than others." I said it softly, but my words carried. Enjoy it while it lasts. The ballroom froze. Shock rolled across Sophie's face. "What's that supposed to mean?" she demanded. "Nothing, just economics," I replied calmly. Caroline forced a brittle laugh. "Ava thinks she understands money." "I understand theft," I said evenly. Silence deepened until even the waitstaff froze. Phones slid out discreetly to record. This was the spectacle they'd been hoping for. "How dare you?" Caroline began. "Sit down," my father commanded. Not requested, commanded. Her mouth snapped shut. "Sophie, give me the microphone." He extended his hand. She hesitated, then placed it there, her confidence draining. The entire room held its breath. Marcus rose deliberately, briefcase in hand. When the family lawyer stands at a birthday party, people notice. "Timing is everything, in law and in life," he said, passing my chair with documents. He stopped at my father's side. "Mr. Hartwell, shall I?" "Not yet, Marcus." "Stay close." The exchange carried weight. Board members straightened, investors pulled out phones, Harrison Walsh hit record. Everyone knew a shift was coming. Marcus placed the portfolio between us. My father lifted the microphone, his voice calm, but heavy with the authority that had built an empire. "You've come to celebrate my daughter's birthday. But more importantly, tonight you'll witness why Hartwell Industries has thrived for 3 generations. It's not about taking. It's about knowing when to reveal your hand." Caroline's knuckles whitened around her glass. Sophie sank into her chair. And for the first time in 10 years, I understood why my father had stayed silent. The leather portfolio bore the Hartwell Industries crest, its tabbed label just out of my view. Across the room, Caroline strained to read it, her eyes narrowing with panic. "Mr. Lee," Harrison Walsh called out, his voice cool but edged. "I wasn't aware you handled family celebrations." Marcus's reply was precise. "I handle family matters, Mr. Walsh. And sometimes family matters require documentation, witnesses, and accountability." The last word landed like a blade in the air. Caroline's grip whitened around her glass. Sophie's fingers twitched toward her phone, likely to check if the accounts were still intact. "Shall we eat first?" my father suggested with practiced calm. "The salmon is exceptional tonight." But no one touched a plate. Every guest could feel the second shoe dangling above the room, ready to drop. He placed his glass down and walked to the center, each step deliberate. The jazz faded to silence, the air tightening as if the chandeliers themselves were listening. "I've been silent for too long," he said, voice cutting to every corner. Then his eyes found mine, and for the first time in years, I saw warmth, pride, not disappointment. Caroline and Sophie didn't notice. They were too busy flicking nervous glances back and forth. 10 years ago," my father continued, "I remarried, hoping to give my daughters a whole family. For a decade, I have observed what that family became." Caroline rose, but his command was a hammer. Sit. One word, and she obeyed. The room shifted. Board members straightened, investors leaned in, realizing this was no birthday toast. In business, he went on, we test potential successors without their knowledge. We see how they withstand pressure, betrayal, and power plays. Some people, his gaze locked on Caroline, believe strength is manipulation and cruelty. Others know true power is restraint, patience, documentation. At that last word, Caroline flinched. Marcus, Dad called. It's time. Marcus rose with the portfolio. With your permission, Mr. Hartwell, everyone here is about to become a witness to legal proceedings. The ballroom buzzed with gasps. Legal proceedings at a birthday party. Dad raised his hand, silencing them. My daughter Ava has something that was stolen. Tonight, she gets it back, with interest. Caroline tried to seize control. Since we're sharing family moments, let's show Ava her birthday gift. She gestured to the display. Sophie connected her phone, flashing images of Paris on the ballroom screen. Shopping at Louis Vuitton, dining under chandeliers, sipping champagne. Caroline's voice sliced through the murmurs. Some lessons are expensive. Ava needed to learn hoarding money while family suffers is selfish. We taught her to share. $25,000, Sophie added, stepping beside her mother, her tone smug. That's what real family support looks like. While Ava clings to savings like Scrooge, I invested in international connections. The room gasped. Harrison's wife covered her mouth. My uncle actually laughed, thinking it a joke. You took her money? Someone called out. We redistributed it, Caroline corrected, her smile gleaming. Ava's too weak to use it properly. Always saving, never living. Someone had to show her money is meant to be spent. Consider it tuition, sweetheart. In this family, the weak get eaten. Sophie shoved her banking app toward nearby guests. Look, I'm not hiding anything. Yes, I used her cards. Yes, I drained her savings. Ava's the family ATM, it's what she's good for. The humiliation was meant to be absolute. But as I sat in the center of their spectacle, I saw something crucial, something they had overlooked. Marcus was recording everything, legally, with over 100 witnesses. My voice cut through the noise. So you admit, here, in front of everyone, that you stole $25,000 from my accounts. The ballroom froze. Caroline laughed, brittle and desperate. Stole? We taught you a lesson about family. My father stepped forward, his face no longer neutral, but cold, corporate, the same face that had dismantled rivals and built an empire. Now, he said evenly, let me tell you what lesson you actually taught. Caroline flailed, doubling down. Ava needs to learn strength. Look at her, 32, single, no backbone. She'll thank us one day, my words carried across the mic Dad had left on. Strength isn't always loud. Sophie scoffed. You've never fought for anything. Your furniture. A few guests chuckled nervously, others looked disgusted. The room was splitting, half watching cruelty, half witnessing a reckoning. Caroline pressed harder, addressing the crowd. How can someone so passive run finance? Sophie has killer instinct. Ava just has spreadsheets, Sophie chimed in. Strong people take action. That's when Harrison Walsh rose. Mrs. Hartwell, are you seriously admitting to theft in public? Caroline snapped back. It's not theft when it's family teaching family. Something you'd understand if you had a real family. Fatal mistake. Harrison's expression hardened from concern to fury. Robert, is this how Hartwell Industries operates? My father's single word cut the air like steel. Enough! The authority in his tone silenced everyone. Caroline, Sophie, guests, even staff. "You want to discuss family business?" he asked Caroline. "Let's discuss it. All of it." He turned to the room. 6 months ago, I uncovered systematic theft. Company cards used for spas and boutiques, fraudulent invoices, embezzlement. Caroline went white. "Robert, you can't." "I can, I have, and I will." He nodded to Marcus. The lawyer rose, opening the portfolio. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are now witnesses to the legal transfer of financial authority of Hartwell Industries to its rightful guardian." Caroline gasped. "No, you wouldn't." "I already did." 6 months ago. I felt the air shift. This was no longer about humiliation. This was the reveal. Dad's voice rang steady. "I gave you rope, and you used it for 10 years. You spent a decade dismissing her. Now let me show you what I observed." He connected his phone to the ballroom screens. Transactions appeared, one by one. January 15th, Sophie charges $8,000 at Bergdorf's on the company card, filed as client entertainment. "The client?" Her personal trainer gasps echoed. Sophie tried to speak. Dad's hand silenced her. February 10th. Caroline withdraws $15,000 from the emergency fund for a gala that never happened. March 3rd, $12,000 transferred for business development, directly into her personal account. Bank statements, signatures, forged invoices filled the screens. Dad's eyes found mine. Every single theft was documented by our chief accountant. Ava knew. She filed the reports. And when I told her to wait, she waited. The guest turned toward me, the weak daughter suddenly transformed into the silent strategist. "You see?" Dad said. Ava wasn't passive. She was building a case. Every charge, every stolen dollar, she logged it all. She could have exposed you months ago, but I told her to wait, to see how far you'd go. Caroline's voice cracked. "Why?" "Because I wanted you to reveal your true nature completely. And last night, you crossed the final line. You stole not from the company, but from Ava herself. $25,000. "That's not," Sophie stammered. "We were teaching." "You were committing felony theft," Marcus cut in sharply, "which you just confessed to in front of over 100 witnesses." The room erupted. My father turned back to the screen and spoke with the calm of a man about to close a case. "The security footage you deleted from Ava's apartment, Caroline, automatically backed up to the cloud. We have you entering with the spare key at 11:47 p.m. We have footage of you accessing her laptop. We have everything grainy framed spilled across the ballroom, Caroline at Ava's kitchen table, Ava's laptop open, transfer after transfer being typed, while Sophie kept watch." "You were clever," my father said slowly. "You forgot one thing. I didn't build this company by being stupid, and I didn't raise Ava to be weak. I raised her to be patient, strategic, brilliant." He looked at me with unmistakable pride. The two of them, consumed by greed, had failed to see the trap closing. Marcus stepped forward and pulled the first document from the portfolio. "This is a power of attorney for financial affairs, executed 6 months ago, granting Ava Hart complete authority over Hartwell Industries' financial decisions." The papers had been signed 6 months earlier. The room inhaled. Caroline stumbled back. "That's impossible. I would have known." "You were too busy stealing to notice," Marcus replied, producing another page. "This is the board resolution unanimously appointing Ava Hart as CFO with full executive powers effective immediately upon any breach of fiduciary duty by current family members." He held up a third document. "And this is the criminal complaint we will file Monday if full restitution isn't made within 48 hours. The ballroom fell utterly silent. Even the staff froze. "Every transaction over $1,000, Marcus announced, required Ava's signature as of 6 months ago. Every unauthorized purchase, every transfer, all criminal. Sophie's phone clattered to the floor. But I'm family, she wailed. So is Ava, my father said coldly. Being family doesn't make you immune to consequences. Marcus tapped his tablet. As of this moment, all accounts linked to Caroline and Sophie Hartwell are frozen pending investigation. The forensic audit is underway. Caroline's shriek filled the room. I'm your wife. You can't do this, he answered. You signed a prenuptial agreement that voids claims in cases of criminal activity. Harrison Walsh rose, steady and decisive. On behalf of Walsh Enterprises, we have complete confidence in Ava's leadership. We will increase our contract by 40%. One by one, business partners declared their support. The tide became a tsunami. Marcus continued. The $25,000 taken from Ava's personal account is due in full within 48 hours. The $347,000 embezzled from Hartwell Industries over 3 years is subject to criminal investigation. Sophie could not finish the number. I stood then, calm and precise. Every spree, every trip, every diverted payment, every receipt became a thread. And by that night, the entire web was ready to snap. I gave you chances to stop. You were right about one thing, Caroline. Some lessons are expensive. The screen shifted to a single document, the new corporate structure. At the top, CEO, Robert Hartwell. Right below, CFO with full financial authority, Ava Hart. Caroline and Sophie were nowhere to be seen. You have 48 hours. The clock starts now, I said, my voice steady, the tone I use in boardrooms. Sophie started to sob. 48 hours to return the $25,000 you stole from my personal accounts. Non-negotiable. Marcus stepped between us as Caroline lunged. Any contact construed as intimidation will be noted, he warned, handing envelopes with formal notices and the criminal attorney contact they'd need. One more thing, I added. Corporate cards canceled as of noon. Key cards deactivated. All company vehicles returned by Monday morning. My car? Sophie gasped. The company car, I corrected. Caroline collapsed to her knees and clutched my dress. Ava, please. We're family. I removed her hands gently, with the same quiet dignity I'd used in meetings. My kindness was never weakness. Your cruelty was. She begged for private talks. Not here, I said. You chose the venue when you chose to humiliate me. Marcus paced forward. Ms. Hartwell, shall we proceed with criminal filing? I looked at them both, pale, shaking, and replied, full restitution within 48 hours, and it remains civil. 1 minute late, $1 short, and it becomes criminal. Sophie wailed about where they would live. The same way I would have if you'd succeeded in destroying me, I said. You'll figure it out. You have that killer instinct you bragged about. My father stood beside me, his hand briefly on my shoulder. The ballroom exhaled, and the balance of power shifted for good. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something unshakable, earned honestly and defended fiercely. Looking back, I realized strength isn't about how much you can endure for others. It's about how firmly you can stand for yourself. For years, I thought love meant saying yes until I forgot how to say no. I thought family meant unlimited forgiveness, that love required endless sacrifice. But real love, the kind that builds instead of destroys, needs boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to respect. My silence hadn't been weakness, though they mistook it for that. It had been patience, restraint, strategy. Each betrayal laid another stone in the foundation I was quietly building beneath their feet. The lesson was clear. Restraint is not surrender. I didn't lash out. I didn't stoop to their level. And I didn't hand them ammunition. Instead, I documented, I prepared, I waited. People ask if I feel guilty about Caroline and Sophie's downfall. The answer is no. I didn't push them off the cliff. I just stopped cushioning their fall. Setting boundaries with family may be the hardest thing we ever do. We're taught that blood means unconditional acceptance. But that belief is how abuse thrives. Real family, whether by blood or by choice, respects your boundaries because they respect you. After that night, Dad and I grew closer. Without Caroline's poison in the room, we could finally talk. He told me stories about Mom I'd never heard, her quiet strength, her refusal to start fights, but her certainty in finishing them. And I finally understood. Finishing a fight doesn't mean destroying people. It means ending cycles, professionally, permanently, and with dignity. A year later, our family was smaller but stronger, built on respect instead of manipulation. Sophie apologized. Caroline never did. That told me everything I needed to know. The last I heard, she'd remarried a wealthy businessman. I wished him luck. He'd need it. Dad semi-retired, keeping the CEO title, but handing me the reins. Under my leadership, Hartwell Industries thrived. Employees once afraid to speak now came forward freely. We rebuilt our culture on integrity, transparency, and accountability. My 33rd birthday was different. No ballrooms, no spectacle. Just dinner with Dad, a few friends, and Marcus, who'd become family. That morning, before the dinner, I hung a new key on my wall. Not just to a new apartment, but to a life I chose, boundaries I built, and a future no one else gets to unlock. Over dessert, Dad asked, "Any wisdom for your 33rd year?" "Yes," I said, raising my glass. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When they take from you, bill them. And when they underestimate you, let them. Right until the moment you don't, because the quiet ones often hold the most power. We just use it." That's the truth I want to leave you with. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or taken advantage of by people who should have protected you, know this. Your patience isn't weakness. It's power, waiting for the right moment. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They are proof of self-respect. And when you finally enforce them, the world shifts in your favor. And remember, the quiet ones don't stay quiet forever.